Marco, a ver qué dices.
So Marco,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
Thanks everyone. Thanks Marvin for your presentation. I really enjoyed it, and I think it's a very important project regarding the things that we have been discussing yesterday and probably today as well. And probably around 10 years ago, before I came into ecological economics, I remember going into a website on the BBC website, so there was a piece about Costanza's paper about global natural capital, and based on his results, the website showed you a lot of ecosystems with some animals drawn on it, and you could click on the animal and it would give you the exact amount of dollars that specific specimen of animal was worth it. So I remember like a tiger shark for $15 and this animal for this amount of dollar, 10, 15, $20. And you know, the first thing in my mind was, well, I mean, if a hunter goes and kills a tiger shark, and you know, he would only have to pay $15 and everything will be okay. And so this really leads to the sort of thing that you mentioned in the, like putting everything on the shoulders of the consumer, right? And yeah, some really borderline nonsensical, right? Not only the figure of, I don't know, 30, 50 billion, trillion dollars for the whole earth, but also on a micro scale, when you go in, you know, and see a specific specimen of a species being priced in a few dollars, is just very nonsensical, right? So that really stuck with me ever since. But anyway, I think that your research shows a few issues here. My first comment would be, because you know all the controversies are based on these special issues in the journal Ecological Economics, right? And one question would be, how representative do you think that those special issues are for those controversies? Because they were huge controversies, and probably they spilled over to all kinds of currents within ecological economics and also outside the you know, into mainstream economics and also sustainability science as a whole, and policy debates and environmentalism. So how do you justify, or how do you see it as a representative thing to have those special issues in that journal specifically, you know, telling this story? But then again, even basing on those special issues, I think that some results are revealed, and you mentioned some of them, right? How seems like ecological economics is very much incoherent, and there's a lot of struggle inside conflicts and all that. And even within figures that you wonder that they are closer and more aligned than other figures that are seen as either members of the social ecological economics or new resource or here and there, you know, whatever their camps. Some figures that you would think that they are more aligned with each other, then they really disagree on foundational issues. So what does that lead us? You know, what does it say about ecological economics as a scientific field and an academic discipline? Is it beneficial? So that circles back to that whole methodological pluralism debate that has been going on since the first issue of the journal, right? And I think this is a case in point that also could shed some light on the current status of the discipline, right? And also because, and then you mentioned how new environmental pragmatism would have won, or you know, taken the lion's share within ecological economics and beyond. And I think that also is something that's worth more attention. And I think it's important for you to get the word out there and also in engaging these issues, because I know, for example, a lot of biologists, natural scientists as a whole, biologists, ecologists, geologists, engineers. I'm an engineer myself, and you know, that was also the first impression that I had when I came into the field, which is indeed how their own contributions could be made by means of valuation, right? And although, and also that that also implies a lot for their own careers, because they can also engage and have jobs and secure, you know, their own careers and grants and money and all that for their own livelihoods doing this sort of thing. So this also opened up a lot of activity and professional development for natural scientists that wanted to go to the field and do this sort of work. But I don't think that they do have the sort of this overall view of, is this a new environmental pragmatism, and what does that amount to? Is that something that they are morally or, you know, methodologically aligned with, or is, you know, just for them to reflect upon those things? I think this is also very important. And finally, I'm sorry if I'm being too late, too long. There was this at the last meeting of the conference of the International Society. So there was a session with Robert Costanza, and he seemed to think that ecological economics was really aligned with the mainstream, and so he didn't regret any of these works, and he was actually saying, well, I think that this is, you know, ecological economics is a part of economics, and it should make use of this kind of tools, you know, really putting ecological economics and environmental economics in a very similar position. And I would also like to see your comments on that, you know, how ecological economics stands in a position to environmental economics. Thanks again for your work. Very inspiring.
Thank you. I answer now or after? What do you prefer?
As you wish. I mean,
so I can answer now.
Can I make my comment now?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. I begin with a question, with the question that has nothing to do with your paper. It has to do with, was the presentation that we made yesterday, the two presentations that we made yesterday, mine and that of Brian's, relevant at all or not? That's the first question, and I'll leave that completely aside. And that has to do with also, do you know our work in the 2012 article that we wrote on the three currents of ecological economics? But I'll leave that aside for the moment. I just wonder, and I pose this to the whole group, how can we have a discussion like this in the light of the report of the International Panel on Climate Change? How can we have a report like this on the notion of why are you continuing to analyze and examine a methodology and an approach to understanding the environment which is anchored in the logic of a market which is systematically destroying the world and which ignores perhaps 1/3 of the world's population and more than 1/3 of the world's land surface. The approach that and the questions you are phrasing and the analysis, which I'm not going to go into the details of, I think you probably are doing I would like to see your paper. You're probably doing a very good job of analyzing the nuts and bolts of this discussion. But it's very disturbing to me that ecological economics is still giving credence to the notion that the market, that there is a possibility of looking at the market, or the footprint approach, which looks at the way in which resources are being used, rather than asking the question about the ecological balance of the planet and the fate of much of the world's population as a result of the kinds of changes that are going on in the world system. So I'm asking a more profound philosophical question about not the internal debates and discussions within ecological economics, but the way in which those debates are placed in the area, in the context of the world, of the world's environmental situation. Yes, the world's situation right now. And I will add, I will finish by saying, it seems to me very interesting that in the days prior to this conference, this seminar that Alberto has very, very well organized, very well, I've been in 3 debates on the movie Don't Look Up. Have you seen that movie? And do you think it's relevant for the approach and the kind of work you're doing? Goodbye.
So now, Dr. Alberto, if you want to add something or ask something?
Yes, I have a few remarks that is more or less related to David Barkin questions and remarks. Is that these controversies makes the point of the question from an epistemological point of view in what we trust. We trust still in the neoclassical framework that is behind the notion of natural capital, and that means if we still trust in the mathematics and in the methodology, in the quantitative valuation process that is involved, that are involved in the natural capital notion, or even if we trust in the environmental science and in the urban planification that are behind the notion of ecological footprints. I think that at the end, that metaphors, because we come back to the notion, to these metaphors that become concepts like natural capital and ecological footprints, involves a sort of ontological commitments of how we analyze the contemporary problematics. And in the case of the natural capital, I think that the controversy come back also to your Georgescu-Regen criticism to mathematics, a sort of he says paper and pencil exercise. No, we use numbers and try to make equation, modulation, and quantitative analysis, and at the end we obtain numbers, but we are not sure if that numbers are a good representation of the reality. And then, in particular, concerning the notion of natural capital and the way that Constanza and collaborators have worked about this notion, I think that there is also the echo about the debate on the embodied energy and price, that the debate of the energetismo, that is also related not to this problem of how to put a price to the goods. And so my question to you, Marvin, will be if we still trust in mathematics, in what kind of mathematics, if we still trust in science, in what kind of science. And the last remark that I would like to make is concerning the early contributions by William Rees and Backernagel, when he identifies the problem and he tried to choose the right metaphor. And one of the metaphors that he considered, but they discarded, is that of the personal planetoid. They say, well, we can consider the waste, the trust that each person produces, and how this trust is accumulated in a sort of planetoid that is going with you everywhere, no? So it's a sort of floating planetary with all you trust. And they find that this was not a good metaphor, and they prefer to choose that of ecological footprint. Well, this is my remarks. Thank you very much also for your presentation.
Okay.
Also, I have a question, if I can do it. Well, in this side, well, who can academia make a stronger relation with policymakers to take into account what you have shown, such as ecological footprint in their policies? Because we still see inaction, even thought there are many reports showing a catastrophic scenario, such as a COPE report. Well, and that's all. You want to start?
Thank you very much. So concerning the first questions, if is actually ecological economics beneficial, and especially this kind of valuations. More generally, concerning all your questions, I found them very open, and I don't think I have an official position. I think it's very versatile, but of course the controversies put light on this school of thought, but as Norgard et al. Says, at which price is that? And actually, I don't think that maybe it contributes to the fact that even in French media, we talk more of environmental problems and crises, and how we overconsume the planet and so on. And many commentators of the environmental crisis say we all know that there is an environmental crisis. So it's no time anymore to sound the alarm. It's time to try to act, etc. And personally, if I have to give my own opinion, I'm not sure that everybody is aware of the environmental crisis, of its details, of the capable to quantify the risks, the timescales, the irreversibility, and so on. So I think that continuing to sound the alarm on the existence of a crisis is a good thing, but I don't think that such languages in hectares and dollars really help to that, because we already have knowledge. We have the IPCC report, IPBES, and so on. So except creating connections and dialogue between economies that were more marginal and neoclassical economies that are in the core of economics, to the detriment of maybe the heterodox initial heterodox identity of ecological economics. I don't think it's really useful. But I have to say that I focused on these two controversies in the journals because I wanted to see I studied actually the figureheads of ecological economics as I was centered also on the authors. I wanted to see how their point of view evolve across time. For example, Dali was in phase with Nicolas Georgescu again. So I wanted to see how, with Costanza's initiative, he considers that his criteria of strong sustainability is respected or not. Actually, he thinks it's respected. So I found interesting to see how the positions of the different protagonists of the young ecological economics was influenced by these controversies. For sure, there are also many external critiques or elogies or advocacies made regarding ecological footprint and Costanza's publication. But yes, I wanted to study the internal effects of these controversies. And I also did not, but by lack of time, it's also part of my project, wanted to see how what are the current, the new improvements in such attempts to capture the value of overuse of natural capital, notably ecological footprint. Is there a renunciation to this supra excessive aggregation? Is the normative choices of the equivalence between ecosystems transparent? Is it open to debate, and so on? Now, I think that concerning Professor Barkin's questions, yes, the conferences of yesterday were really enlightening, and it showed really a radical alternative to what I studied in this project, and ways to stop to focus on trying to get a single number value of the Earth in dollar or in hectare. So I'm totally I totally agree and support this kind of initiatives. Yes, concerning don't look up. That's what I said. I think the alarm has not been heard by everybody. There is still a lot of climato-skepticism inside the political area field, and we cannot do as if it did not exist anymore. So the question, how can economists aware of the environmental crisis, how can they inform the citizens, is really, I think, should be in the core, in the center of the questions, and also we have to sort, to select useful and maybe toxic attempts to alarm on the crisis. Was there other questions? I didn't know concerning the planetoid. I didn't know this metaphor. I will have a look at this. Thank you. I think it's really interesting. Yes.
Okay, perfect.